Discover the amazing journey of a single mom who transformed her life with an incredible CEO's support. It was just another busy afternoon at the diner, and Sarah's hands trembled as she balanced the hefty tray of pancakes. Her mind raced. How was she going to make rent with 2 part-time jobs and 2 kids, both of whom needed braces? Just as she approached a man in a sharp suit seated at the window, her footing faltered. The cacophony of laughter and clinking silverware faded into silence as the stack of pancakes flew through the air, landing spectacularly in front of him. "Oh no!" she exclaimed, her heart sinking. The patrons turned, and for a brief moment, she wished the ground would swallow her whole. But instead of anger, the man's reaction was a soft laugh. His eyes held a sense of empathy as he looked at her, capturing her gaze with an intensity that made her pulse race. "No harm done," he said warmly, reaching out to help her scoop the sticky, syrup-laden pancakes back onto the tray. That was when Jim, the CEO, became her unexpected lifeline, an anchor in the turbulent sea of her life. Just minutes into the conversation, she found herself pouring out her struggles, the fear of never being enough, of always being underestimated. Sarah realized that this wasn't just a moment of embarrassment. It was an opportunity. But as the conversation deepened, her hope turned to doubt. What if he's just being nice? Underneath her plaid shirt was a heart heavy with burdens. Would someone from his world truly care? The thought wormed its way into her psyche, fueling her insecurities. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Months passed, and with Jim's mentorship, she found courage to enroll in a college course. Yet, as the semester approached, she questioned if she was worthy of this chance. Walking into the lecture halls felt like stepping into a foreign land, bright minds draped in the garments of privilege. Chatter floating around her about internships Sarah couldn't even fathom. The professors glanced her way with skeptical eyes, weighing her down with judgments she could almost taste. Her aspirations clashed with the reality of her life. She was often too tired, too anxious. Could she juggle studying sustainable energy and being a consistent mom? Would her kids understand if she wasn't always there? Then came the discovery about her late father's hidden legacy. The revelation twisted her stomach. What did it mean for her identity? Was she unlocking a life of possibilities or pulling back the curtain on shame? Each moment built merciless pressure, like a vice squeezing her chest. Just as she felt herself inching closer to success, an influential opponent arose from within her community, strategically attacking her research. It was an unsettling reminder that she was never really in control. The frustration brewed inside her, confronting the unfairness that her hard work could be overshadowed by mere connections. Sarah battled her rising ambition and fears head-on. Would she stand firm against injustice for her own children's future? Would she risk losing it all to chase what she might deserve? As the tension escalated and her resolve hardened, she received an unexpected note, an invitation from her father's past that threatened to unravel everything she thought she knew about loyalty and her place in this relentless world. Would she take the leap, or was this yet another trap awaiting her? The lines between loyalty and ambition blurred further, leaving her in a whirlwind of uncertainty. The uncertainty gnawed at Sarah like a relentless tide, pulling her under with every thought of the note resting on her cluttered kitchen table. The elegant handwriting felt foreign, yet it beckoned her, urging her to confront the past she had thought was resolved. Her father's legacy had been a distant rumor, spoken of in hushed tones, but now it was thrust into her hands, demanding attention. With a deep breath, she decided to use her college break for an intense, soul-searching weekend. She needed clarity. This invitation felt like a breadcrumb leading her to either enlightenment or chaos. Sarah packed a small bag, her heart thumping with anticipation as she drove to the old family home, hesitant about what awaited her. The house, draped in memories and shadows, stood stark against the pale sky. Each step toward the front door resonated like thunder in her chest. She turned the key in the lock, the sound echoing eerily as she entered the dim living room, filled with relics of a past she had spent years trying to redefine. Dust motes danced in the sunlight filtering through the curtains, revealing the neglect of years gone by. Sarah's focus shifted to the thick envelope resting on the dining table, the source of her turmoil. Trembling fingers peeled it open, revealing documents that spoke of trust funds, investments, and complicated legal jargon that made her head spin. Her father, a man she only knew through faded memories, had hidden layers beneath his stern exterior, layers she had never been privy to. As she sifted through the contents, snippets of her father's life emerged. Alliances with powerful figures, philanthropic endeavors, and an untold story of his efforts to build something great, all while she had only known the struggles of a single mom trying to make ends meet. Emotions blended into confusion and resentment. Was the father she longed to understand merely an accomplished figure forging his legacy? Or was he also a flawed man whose choices led to her own hardships? A knock at the door jolted her from her reverie. Wiping away a stray tear, she opened it to find a familiar face, Jim. His presence felt both intimidating and comforting, a blend of her old life and newfound ambition. "I thought you could use some company," he said, eyeing the envelope and the anxious energy radiating from her. The conversation that unfolded revealed more than she was prepared to face. Jim, with his knowledge and experience, listened intently to her struggles, reflecting back the complexity of her feelings. "Your father left you this for a reason," he paused, searching her eyes. "It's not just about money. It's about opportunity. You can rewrite your story, but you have to confront the reality of what's in that envelope. Don't shy away from it." With his words, something shifted in Sarah. The fear that had weighed her down began to lighten, and the adrenaline of potential ignited within her. This was about more than following in her father's footsteps. It was an invitation to mold her own destiny. As each detail of her father's hidden legacy sank in, so did a newfound resolve. It was time to unlock her own potential, using both the knowledge of the past and the power she had begun to claim for herself. Yet, as clarity washed over her, another thought crept in, an alarming realization that confronting her father's legacy might mean exposing further secrets, secrets that could change her life forever. His involvement with powerful figures hinted at a complicated web of loyalties she was only beginning to understand. "Are you ready to find out what really lies within?" Jim asked, sensing the turmoil behind her determination. And at that moment, as Sarah mustered her courage, she knew that the path ahead was fraught with challenging decisions and conflicting loyalties. The invitation wasn't just a reminder of the past. It was a pivotal moment of truth that could define her future. Would she dare to continue down this path, risking everything for the clarity she sought? The question loomed heavy in the air. Was it time to embrace her father's legacy, regardless of the intimidation it might bring? Or would she retreat, clinging to the safe grounds of her current existence? As uncertainty loomed, a final thought echoed in her mind. The past could be her greatest ally or her worst enemy. The early morning light spilled into the room, casting long shadows that intertwined with the memories clinging to its corners. Sarah sat at the dining table, documents spread out before her like an intricate puzzle begging to be solved. Her heart raced as she flipped through the pages, drawing closer to the heart of the mystery her father had crafted over a lifetime. Each investment revealed unexpected intricacies: real estate in favored neighborhoods, donations to causes that aligned with her values, but the most perplexing was a name she didn't recognize, associated with a significant trust fund. "Who are you?" she whispered to herself, grappling with the instinct to pull back from the revelation. A flicker of doubt chased its way through her resolve. What would she do with this information? Would unearthing her father's connections draw her closer to him, or further away? Jim leaned against the door frame, his presence a grounding force in a world that felt increasingly erratic. "You're deep in thought," he observed, his voice striking a balance between encouragement and concern. "I don't even know what to make of all this," Sarah confessed, gesturing toward the documents as if they were smoldering coals. It's like he was living in a different world than the one I knew. Maybe it was both, Jim suggested, stepping closer to the table. Everyone has layers, and it's clear he wanted you to know this part of him. It's an opportunity, Sarah. He may have seen your potential in ways you never recognized in yourself. A shiver of fear twisted in her stomach. The idea of stepping into her father's world, of unraveling his legacy, was daunting. But there was an undeniable spark within her that countered the fear, one that longed for connection, clarity, and ultimately, the chance to define her own path. The conflict brewed between her instinct to retreat to the familiar and her growing desire to confront the unknown. Maybe I should, she said slowly, each word a step closer to commitment. Maybe I can redefine what I think of him, what I want to become. Then what is stopping you? Jim's gaze bore into hers, unwavering, pushing her to reach deeper. The truth, she realized, lay not in the fear of the past, but in the promise of her future. What if there are things in his past that I don't want to know? Things that could change how I view everything? Then you face them, he replied firmly. You've got the strength to handle whatever you find. You're stronger than you realize, Sarah. This journey is about discovering who you are apart from his shadow. His words ignited adrenaline, illuminating parts of her mind she had kept dormant. What had she learned in moments of hardship? Every setback had forged resilience, and this was no different. The path ahead might be osseous with challenge, but it was also ripe with opportunity, an opportunity to rewrite her narrative. As she looked again at the documents, something inside her clicked. This wasn't just about her father. It was about her own legacy, her values, and the life she wanted to carve out for herself. She needed to confront the implications of what she discovered and harness it as fuel for her growth. Let us start digging into this, she said, determination shaping her voice as she began organizing the chaotic information before her. For the first time, she felt like the architect of her own journey, not just the daughter of a legacy, but an author of her own story. Yet, as she thumbed through one last page of the envelope, a name stood out: Susan McAllister. A name that tied these legacies together in a way that was far more personal than she expected. A chill swept over her. I think I need to find out who this Susan is. Jim nodded, the intensity of the moment pressing against them. The time had come to face whatever that meant, Sarah. New knots of anxiety twisted within her, and she realized that this journey could spiral into something far more complex than she envisioned. Because in unraveling her father's past, she might just uncover truths she wasn't prepared to confront. Would she be willing to challenge the shadows, not just to understand her father, but also to come face to face with the parts of herself that remained hidden? And as she prepared for the inevitable confrontation, another thought lingered ominously. Who was Susan McAllister, and what story would the search reveal? Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a winter storm. She navigated through a sea of online directories, searching for any mention of Susan McAllister. The anonymity of the digital world felt suffocating, as if each click could lead her into murky waters. What kind of connection did a name from the shadows hold over her father's life? More importantly, what kind of hold would it have over her own? Pursuing this question was less about the past and more about who she could become. Each detail she uncovered could be a step toward her emancipation from the shadows of expectations. She took a deep breath, recalling Jim's words. You're stronger than you realize. The truth of that statement shot through her resolve as she pressed enter for the final search. The screen flickered to life, showcasing a series of results. After skimming through a few pages, one entry intrigued her. A non-profit organization focused on the very causes her father had funded. A spark of recognition ignited her. Sarah whispered, recognizing the mission as a reflection of her father's values. Launching into the thread of information, she meticulously began disentangling the connections. What had started as mere curiosity transformed into an intricate tapestry of hope and purpose. Her father had not just invested money. He had invested in possibilities. She could see it now. His legacy was more than a silent specter. It was a catalyst for change, both in himself and potentially through her. But there was still Susan, the name that loomed larger than the rest. To uncover the details, Sarah decided a direct approach might cut through the ambiguity, though it ignited her anxiety. Making a phone call felt daunting. It drudged up feelings of past failures mixed with fear of rejection. But as she paced the kitchen, the comforting hum of Jim's presence began to buffer that sense of dread. What if she doesn't want to talk or doesn't respond kindly? She said aloud, steeling herself against the growing tide of self-doubt. Then you'll adapt. Make it a priority to listen first and share after, Jim advised, leaning against the counter with an air of quiet confidence. The aim is clarity, not confrontation. That was it. Clarity was her goal. She sat down, adjusted her posture, and composed herself. With a deep breath, she dialed the number listed under Susan's nonprofit. A familiar sense of tension laced through the silence as it rang, amplifying the reverberations of her own racing heart. "Hello, this is Susan McAllister," came a smooth voice on the other end. The moment electrified the air around Sarah, each word an invitation that echoed with possibility. "Hi, Susan. My name is Sarah," she introduced herself, each syllable heavy with meaning, the weight of her father's name hanging in the air between them. "I've been looking into my father's legacy. Your work is amazing. I believe he supported your initiatives." There was a pause, pregnant with curiosity on Susan's end. "And how does it feel to step into his world?" The question sailed over the fractured ground she tread upon. Was she stepping into his world, or was she beginning to build her own? "Feels like both," she admitted, heart racing as truth mixed with fear. "I'm discovering parts of him I never understood, as well as parts of me. It's challenging." "Growth rarely is," Susan replied softly. "It's an opportunity. What do you want to know?" That simple inquiry hung in the air, asking not only for answers about her father, but also pushing Sarah to articulate her own ambitions. As she gathered her thoughts, clarity surged within her, illuminating the murkiness that had clouded her mind for too long. The drive toward self-understanding was a path that demanded courage, but perhaps it was also essential for growth. "I want to understand what he saw in you, how our lives intersect, and perhaps what it means for me moving forward," she responded, feeling empowered by her own words. In her heart, a small flame flickered to life. The dialogue had shifted from mere curiosity to the potential for genuine understanding. As Susan's voice filled the empty spaces of doubt with wisdom and warmth, Sarah realized she was not just reconstructing the past. She was laying the groundwork for her future. Yet, with the fuel of newfound resolve igniting her journey, she understood the stakes were rising. If Susan held key truths, what would her revelations uncover? What shadows remained lurking as she navigated these layers of complexity? And most importantly, would she be prepared to meet whatever lay ahead? As the call drew on, another thought settled uneasily in her mind. Some doors, once opened, could never be closed again. What awaited her on the other side? Sarah's breath faltered as Susan's voice turned pensive. "Your father was more than a benefactor. He was a believer in potential, yours included. I'm sure. You're embarking on a journey to discover what that potential looks like for you." The weight of Susan's words resonated deeply, igniting a mix of motivation and trepidation. She felt as though she was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss of possibilities. "I guess I'm afraid," Sarah admitted, vulnerable and raw. "Afraid of what I might find or what I might not be capable of." "Fear is part of the process," Susan reassured her. "Embrace it. This is your chance to redefine what success means for you, to take ownership of your narrative." As Sarah contemplated Susan's insights, a kaleidoscope of thoughts swirled in her mind. She had always been defined by her father's shadow. Now, the beckoning of self-definition felt both liberating and terrifying. Clenching her phone tightly, she ventured deeper into the conversation, asking questions that unveiled not only her father's past, but also her own uncertainties about her future. "I understand my dad's passion for philanthropy shaped his life, but I've never felt like I could channel that enthusiasm." "I didn't have the same confidence," Sarah confessed. In Susan's reply, there was a spark that ignited something within Sarah. Confidence comes from action. It's not something you possess. It's something you cultivate. What would it take for you to feel empowered? What can I help you explore? Sarah paused, heart pounding with newfound urgency. I want to make a difference myself beyond just following in his footsteps. I want to discover what drives me, what I'm willing to fight for. Then let us start with what ignites a spark in you, Susan encouraged. Understanding your passions will unlock greater clarity. If you find what resonates, you may find it easier to step into that power. Intrigued, Sarah began to visualize her own ambitions. What causes spoke to her? What issues stirred her heart? With each inquiry, she traced a line back through her life, considering moments where she felt the fire of passion. It was often nestled beneath layers of skepticism and self-doubt. She had to dig deep to surface those buried desires. I've always loved working with kids, she noted hesitantly. I volunteered at a local youth center but never thought of it as a career. Why not? Susan interjected, her curiosity piqued. It seemed out of reach, Sarah replied, her voice trembling with uncertainty. I thought I needed something stable, traditional. Can't just jump into something like that. Why not? Traditional does not equal fulfillment. Think of it as planting seeds. You nurture them and watch them grow into something beautiful, regardless of their form. With those words, the walls of hesitation began to crumble. Sarah's heart raced with the prospect of nurturing her own ideas, her own dreams. Each revelation felt like a thread weaving into her personal tapestry. I want to explore that more, she said, firming her resolve. I want to see how I can impact kids' lives, much like my dad did by funding these initiatives. Excellent, Susan replied, enthusiasm resonating through the line. With clarity comes ambition. What can you do today that would begin to bridge that gap? Inspired, Sarah began to draft a vision in her mind, a vision where she would lead workshops, instill confidence in youth, and impact communities in a way she never allowed herself to dream. There was work ahead, obstacles to navigate, and self-doubt to confront, but she felt indefatigably determined. I'll reach out to local centers and see if they need assistance, she resolved. Fantastic, Susan affirmed. Sometimes a simple step can lead you down a pathway you never expected to travel. As the call wrapped up, Sarah felt invigorated. A rush of energy surged through her. For the first time, she was leaning into possibility, embracing the uncertainty instead of recoiling from it. But as the conversation concluded, a shadow loomed. Her mind drifted to her father's expectations and societal notions of success. Would she really be able to break free, fully step into her own identity without succumbing to the pressure to conform to an image built by others? Just as she put down the phone, a chilling thought struck her. What if this path to self-discovery revealed something she wasn't prepared for? The unknown felt vast, even frightening. But rather than recoil, she stood taller, determined. Now that she had taken the first step, the next would be crucial. In her willingness to embrace confusion and fear, there laid the seed of something powerful. She whispered softly to herself, "The time has come to cultivate my own potential." What awaited her in this uncharted territory? And would she find the strength to confront whatever shadows lingered in her newfound path? The sun dipped low in the sky, casting elongated shadows across Sarah's living room that mirrored her internal struggle. She sat at her kitchen table, laptop opened and untouched, heart racing with each pulse of uncertainty. The clock on the wall ticked with relentless precision, mocking her indecision. She clicked on the search bar, writing youth mentorship programs before hesitating to hit enter. Instead, memories flooded back. The laughter of children at the center where she had volunteered, the way their eyes lit up when they felt heard. They needed guidance, and so did she. She realized this was her opportunity, a tangible way to confront her fears head-on. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. What if I mess up? She thought, her mind replaying echoes of self-doubt. But Susan's words resurfaced. Confidence comes from action. With a deep inhale, she committed her thoughts to the screen, finally searching for programs in her area. The results filled the page, and within moments, she found herself drawn to one that resonated deeply: an initiative targeting at-risk youth through arts and education. Feeling a spark of connection, she clicked through the details, each word igniting a growing fire within her. This was more than a career, it was a calling. "I'll volunteer," she muttered confidently, pushing back against the previous nagging thoughts of inadequacy. But her determination faltered with the prospect of contacting the program director. What if they reject me? I'm not qualified. It was the same hesitance that had crippled her for years. Moments slipped away as she chewed on her lower lip in contemplation. Each tick of the clock seemed to beckon her to decide. Just a month prior, she would have written off this opportunity as another unrealistic daydream. But looking now into the depths of her own ambition, she saw a future where her experiences could translate into meaningful interactions with the very kids she wished to inspire. Steeling her resolve, she wrote a concise email outlining her background, her passion for working with children, and her desire to volunteer as a mentor. Pressing send felt liberating, an act of defiance against her fears. The decision was monumental. It marked her first stride toward manifesting a life rich in purpose, not just following the path laid out by her father. As soon as she hit the button, a wave of anxiety surged through her. What if they don't respond? The uncertainty churned in her stomach like a turbulent ocean threatening to consume her. She had just taken a step into the unknown, but clarity eluded her. In that moment of vulnerability, doubt swirled around her. It's too much to hope for, she chastised herself, but she pressed on against the negativity. What if the rejection didn't define her success? What if it was part of the greater journey of growth? The days that followed were a blend of hope and anticipation. Sarah meticulously prepared herself, reading books on mentorship and child development, straightening her shaky resolve. She created a list of questions to ask when she received a response, ready to explore her potential. Yet, each pulse of excitement also mixed with fear. The reality of stepping into a role she had only imagined loomed over her like a storm cloud. Then, one afternoon, the email flashed in her inbox. Her heart raced. The program director's response was filled with encouragement and a call for an interview. An interview. The word echoed in her mind as if it were a talisman against her fears. But relief was quickly replaced by a swell of anxiety. What if she didn't have the right answers? In that moment of reflection, she decided that she would embrace the unpredictability. She had already sent the email. She had already manifested her desire to guide. Now she must prepare to embody that calling. As the days counted down to the interview, she meticulously rehearsed her thoughts and visions. Yet, beneath the layers of logical preparation, doubt whispered relentlessly, questioning her capacity to inspire anyone. But the fervent resolve within her battled against it. This was a chance not just to step out of her father's shadow but to illuminate her own path. What if this truly is a transformative experience? She pondered. Just when she thought she had gathered courage, the night before the interview became a sleepless battle against her growing anxiety. Would she truly follow through, or would she falter just as she had in the past? The dawn broke with the promise of possibility, but Sarah lay wide awake, waiting for the truth of her resolve to reveal itself. The moment had arrived to face not just her fears but the very core of who she was becoming. Could she finally surpass her insecurities and truly transform this potential into impact? The answers were drawing near, but the tension hung heavily, poised to unravel in either triumph or defeat. The sun began its ascent, casting a warm golden hue across Sarah's room that felt strangely promising. The morning of her interview had arrived, and yet she lay in bed, paralyzed by a tumultuous mix of excitement and dread. Each thought spiraled, intensifying her internal struggle. What if I forget everything? What if they see I'm just pretending to be confident? With a sharp inhale, she swung her legs over the side of the bed and planted her feet firmly on the floor. The cool touch grounded her, a simple reminder that today was not about the fear looming over her, but about the trust she could cultivate in herself. Standing up, she felt the weight of her intentions. She wasn't just showing up for an interview. She was showing up for an opportunity to become a beacon for kids who, like her, had once felt lost. As she moved through her morning routine, Sarah focused on affirmations she had practiced. Looking in the mirror, She reminded herself that experience was not simply a measure of past deeds, but also a testament to her willingness to step forward into the unknown. I am capable. I bring value. Another deep breath calmed her racing heart. She arrived at the office with her hands slightly trembling, but with each footstep, that familiar fire ignited inside her again. The building was bustling with activity. She paused for a heartbeat, realizing she was part of this vibrant ecosystem, ready to contribute her unique perspective. When she entered the room for her interview, everything else faded. The props of her fear fell away, leaving her true self vulnerable but ready. The interview panel consisted of calm, welcoming faces, each demonstrating a genuine interest in her answers. They asked about her background, her motivations, and what she envisioned for mentorship. With each question, Sarah found herself loosening her grip on the artificial boundaries she decreated. As she recounted stories about her childhood and her volunteering experiences, a strange sensation coursed through her: empowerment. Tell us about a time when you had to overcome a challenge while working with children, one interviewer probed. That question hit home, and with it came a flood of recollections, not of failures but of resilience. She spoke about the struggles she faced during her last volunteer experience and how she learned to adapt. I discovered that sometimes it's not about having all the answers. It's about showing up, being present, and finding ways to connect. A spark ignited in their eyes. For the first time, Sarah felt her voice resonating with authenticity. The interview flowed naturally, and their feedback was restorative. They walked her through their vision for the program, sharing anecdotes of success and ideas for expansion. It wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a mutual conversation about possibilities, a discussion where her enthusiasm took shape in the light of their shared mission. But just as hope filled the air, a single, nagging doubt resurfaced. What if I don't get the role? What if they choose someone else? A confrontation with this familiar fear shot through her like a cold wave. But as she stood after the conclusion, she realized that the very act of stepping into that room and offering her perspective was a monumental success in itself. Thank you for this opportunity. I am excited to hear back from you, she concluded, feeling a strange thrill at the prospect of their future collaboration, regardless of the outcome. Outside the office, she let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. The experience had already shifted something deep within her. Sarah walked to her car, her mind swirling with new ideas and energies, each thought vibrant with the potential to reshape her future. She pondered how this experience might pave the way toward a call to action, contributing her insights into education in ways she had always envisioned but never pursued. As she drove home, a strange sense of calm enveloped her. The interview had felt like a bridge, spanning the chasm between her insecurities and the emerging person she was ready to become. But uncertainty lingered just below the surface. Could she build this bridge into a solid path? With a spark of excitement tinged with anxiety, she began to formulate her next steps. What lay ahead was not just a waiting game but a call to prepare herself for whatever challenge or opportunity was unveiled. She might have just glimpsed the horizon of her transformation, but the road ahead would demand courage and commitment. What awaited her could be monumental inspiration or self-discovery, joy or heartbreak. Perhaps the real challenge isn't just getting the role. It's what I choose to do with the acceptance of either outcome. With that thought echoing in her mind, she drove onward, carrying her renewed resolve deep within her. The interview brought a realization that the true transformation had already begun even before she set foot in the building. Now, she stood at a crossroads, preparing to answer the most profound question of all. How would she embrace the results, no matter what shape they took? The phone buzzed insistently on the table, jolting Sarah from her reverie. She glanced at the screen to find an email notification from the organization. Her heart raced with expectation, a mixture of hope and trepidation twirling in her chest. That single moment felt like a crucible, a defining point where she realized the edge of her journey loomed ahead. Deciding to hold off on opening it just yet, she pulled out a notebook and a pen. The pages were brimming with ideas and reflections sparked from her interview. What stood out wasn't the outcome she anticipated but the newfound clarity swirling around her ambitions. It was almost as if the act of preparing had become as vital as the interview itself. Slowly, she wrote down everything she could remember about the interview, her thoughts shifting from fear to fascination. What do I want to create? She asked herself, eyebrows furrowing in focus. It wasn't just about landing the position. It was about weaving the experiences she'd gathered over the years into a cohesive narrative, one that could uplift others. Minutes became hours as she sketched out plans for potential workshops and outreach programs for children, each idea inviting a sense of purpose. Could she curate a series of sessions that would empower youth to explore their potential, as she had once longed? The possibilities painted a vibrant picture, drawing her into a future where she could solidify her role as a mentor. But the gnawing inner voice broke through. What if it's too ambitious? What if they want something else? Sarah paused, biting the end of her pen. This was familiar territory. Doubts seeped in like shadows. Yet another deep breath reminded her of her enlightenment post-interview. She had a voice, and more importantly, she had ideas worth sharing. Rising from her chair, Sarah turned toward the window. The evening sun settled low in the sky, casting warm rays that warmed her face. It symbolized the glow of possibilities just waiting to be embraced. What would it take to turn this potential into something real? Determination surged through her, a burning flame of urgency. In that moment, Sarah committed to action. Instead of waiting idly for the response from the organization, she would take the reins and build the framework of her aspirations. It was exhilarating but terrifying. She pulled out her laptop, eager fingers flying across the keyboard as she researched techniques for enabling transformative learning experiences. With each article, each strategy, she could feel her expertise expand, revealing hidden competencies she had tucked away. Moments of doubt flickered through her consciousness, but with every piece of knowledge gained, those whispers quieted to mere echoes. Hours passed unnoticed until fatigue set in. Satisfied but aware of the work still ahead, she leaned back, stretching her arms above her head, allowing the tension to unfurl. The weight of her ambition felt lightness now, cleared by the necessity of her determination. Just before she punched out the final search for the night, her phone chimed again. With a swift movement, Sarah checked the notifications. At the top of the screen was the organization's email. Her pulse quickened as she found herself staring at a large congratulations emblazoned across the subject line. No longer was she standing at the precipice of possibility, but now she had been thrust into the arena. Yet the immediate swell of joy was accompanied by a twinge of anxiety. Alongside the acceptance was a list of expectations and responsibilities. An internal conflict stirred within her. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or would she crumble under the weight of high hopes? Uncertainty threatened her newfound optimism, but she couldn't ignore the rush of opportunity either. Glancing up from her screen, Sarah took a moment to breathe, recognizing that the journey ahead was not solely about succeeding, but also about continual growth. How would she navigate this path fraught with challenges? What new revelations awaited her as she stepped into this new role? With these questions looming, she closed the laptop, knowing the next chapter of her story had just begun. The landscape of her future sparkled with daunting yet exhilarating possibilities. As she lay in bed that night, a question echoed in her thoughts. What new challenges lie in wait, and how would she choose to embrace them? Sunlight poured through the slats of Sarah's blinds the next morning, illuminating the remnants of her restless night, dark circles forming under her eyes, a testament to her racing thoughts. She sat up, the thrill of her acceptance still buzzing in her veins, but now clouded by the gravity of her new reality. The organization had listed a rigorous schedule for the upcoming onboarding session, and her mind raced with the implications of each commitment. She was to lead her first workshop within weeks. The thought struck her like a lightning bolt. What if I'm not ready? She whispered to the room, clinging to the bedsheets as if they could save her from the tidal wave of self-doubt crashing around her. These responsibilities were not just tasks. They represented her ambition, her desire to influence young lives. Anxiety knotted her stomach, a reminder of how far the chasm between aspiration and ability sometimes felt. Determined to confront this inner turmoil rather than succumb to it, Sarah hopped out of bed and proceeded to her kitchen. The aroma of fresh coffee brewed bracing warmth, a simple yet comforting ritual against the chaos of her emotions. She poured a cup, needing a moment to collect her scattered thoughts. Her notebook beckoned from the table, pages filled with speculations and ideas for her session's notes she had poured so much energy into. As she sipped her coffee, Sarah reviewed her plans, allowing her heart to settle into the rhythm of potential rather than fear. There were names and themes, concepts for workshops designed to coax out creativity in children who had perhaps long been told they couldn't. But then the nagging voice surfaced again, whispering doubts disguised as reason. What if the kids don't listen? What if I fail? With a firm shake of her head, Sarah reacted against the paralysis of indecision. She would not allow fear to dictate her journey. In that moment, she realized the weight of another truth. If she wanted to come through this experience stronger, she needed to step beyond her comfort zone. What would resilience look like in action, here and now? How could she transform this fear into fuel? Taking the first concrete action, Sarah decided to connect with a few colleagues who had previously led workshops. As she scrolled through her contacts, her heart raced not only with anticipation but also with vulnerability. Speaking to them about her concerns was stepping towards the edge again. Would they perceive her as inexperienced? Would they dismiss her fears? With hesitation giving way to resolve, she texted a trusted colleague, an experienced mentor who had once guided her own journey in education. I'd love to bounce some ideas off you for my upcoming workshop. When are you free? Receiving a quick thumbs up was a small victory, yet it sent waves of reassurance cascaded through her. She spent the rest of the day drafting a more defined structure for her workshop, learning objectives, activities, and assessment methods. The meticulous composition turned into an act of catharsis, where fears could be confronted by careful planning. Each hour spent working felt like an investment in her confidence, a reaffirmation of her capability. But instead of feeling invincible, uncertainties lingered like a shadow. The pressure to succeed was omnipresent. Later that evening, just before bed, Sarah pulled up the organization's provided resources. As she read about best practices in engaging youth effectively, she stumbled upon a success story about a workshop that transformed skeptics into believers. Something inside her stirred. Was her story also meant to inspire? The embellishments of hope mingled awkwardly with doubt. The clock struck midnight when her phone buzzed again. It was a text from her colleague. Let's meet tomorrow at 3. Looking forward to sharing ideas. A surge of excitement mixed with trepidation flooded her senses. Tomorrow could be a turning point not just for her workshop but also for how she chose to frame her role in this new chapter of her life. The thrilling prospect of growth, intertwined with the fear of failure. As she drifted off to sleep later, Sarah mulled over the budding excitement amidst uncertainty. She was beginning to realize that growth often resided in the uncomfortable spaces. The challenge was ever present, but perhaps it was not the task itself that defined her. It was the way she responded to it. What awaited her was more than a multi-session workshop. It felt like a transformation, where her ambitions were no longer merely dreams but a living, breathing purpose. When the morning sun rose, illuminating a new day, it would be time to fully embrace both the fears that held her back and the courage that pushed her forward. What still lingered was the question of what revelations her journey could unveil about her place in this new world she had stepped into. The day of her first workshop arrived, and Sarah stood at the front of the room with a mix of nerves and exhilaration. The echo of children's laughter echoed through the walls, an intoxicating sound that filled her with purpose. She glanced at her lesson plan, meticulously detailed but slightly wrinkled from her repeated revisions. Today is not just about teaching. It's about connecting, she reminded herself, drawing strength from the knowledge that she was there to inspire. Sarah took a deep breath and smiled as the kids filed in, a motley crew of eager faces ready to explore new horizons. The moment she began speaking, her voice trembled initially, but confidence surged as she settled into the rhythm of facilitation. Welcome. Today we're going to create our very own stories. The excited chatter that followed felt electric. As she engaged the group, she watched as their apprehensions washed away, their curiosity blossoming. In that moment of sharing ideas and imaginative narratives, Sarah felt herself transform before their eyes not just into a mentor, but as a guide facilitating discovery. Every glimmer of enthusiasm from the children propelled her forward. Self-doubt melted with each laughter-filled interaction. Weeks passed into a blur of workshops, each one challenging her to refine her approach, adapt to the children's needs, and broaden her teaching strategies. Each session crafted with passion was a testament to her growth. The children thrived, and Sarah began to receive feedback that reminded her she was not merely filling a role. She was making an impact. By the end of the term, she organized a showcase meant to highlight the children's creative projects. The room buzzed with excitement as parents gathered for the event, an opportunity for Sarah to witness the fruits of her labor. Proudly displayed were stories, art, and performances that represented not only the children's progress, but also her own journey as an educator. As the presentations unfolded, Sarah stood at the back, heart swelling. One child, Derek, who once struggled to articulate his ideas, now spoke confidently, sharing a story inspired by his own life. "Thank you, Miss Sarah, for believing in us," he exclaimed. The delight in the room was palpable, and at that moment, Sarah knew she had conquered her fears. The culmination of her efforts resonated personally, validating everything she aspired to achieve. The applause washed over her like a warm embrace, a celebration of both her and her students' victories. Looking around, she recognized her reflection in their eyes. Resilience, hope, and the courage to dream. In the aftermath of the event, an email arrived from the organization's leadership. They expressed appreciation for her innovative techniques and growth as a mentor, inviting her to take on a leadership role in the upcoming programming. This offer was the cherry on top of her transformative journey, a recognition she had aspired to but never fully believed she could achieve. Sarah accepted the position, her voice unwavering and resolute. "I'm eager to contribute and grow alongside the team," she responded, the satisfaction intertwined with the acknowledgement of her evolution. She had transcended the boundaries of self-doubt and stepped into the professional arena with newfound authority. Reflecting on her journey, Sarah could now see how each obstacle had sculpted her character. The shadows of her father's legacy, once oppressive, had transformed into stepping stones for her future. She realized that the potential she inherited was not a burden but an opportunity to carve her own artistic path in life. As she prepared for her next challenges, the clarity within her solidified. Each day, motivation coursed through her veins, igniting the fire that pushed her beyond mere aspirations. "I am more than what I once thought," she whispered to herself, an affirmation that resonated deeply. In the world she had stepped into, the question was no longer if she would succeed but how brightly she would shine. Sarah was ready to embrace that light fully, no longer hiding, but boldly illuminating her own way forward, as both a mentor and a fearless architect of her life. This was her moment, a powerful reminder that transformation thrives within those willing to step into the unknown, face their fears, and redefine their stories. Now, as the story culminates in this final chapter of her journey, it beckons you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this profound conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. Be part of the journey with us. You need to subscribe now, because true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of uplifting one another through these actions.